Thanks for joining us on Live 5 News at 6, everyone. I'm Ann McGill.
And I'm Raphael James. It started with a terrifying escape, ending in tragedy that some say was mishandled from the very beginning, and the system, they say, failed to respond.
We need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Whatever we need to do to make sure that we prevent this from happening again.
Live 5 Investigates takes a closer look at how domestic violence cases are prosecuted here in the Lowcountry and the cracks in our system where victims can feel unsupported, cases can stall, and abusers can even walk free. Our investigative reporter Emily Johnson breaks down the details of where a recent domestic violence case went wrong and what needs to change to prevent another tragedy from happening again. But first, we need to warn you that some of the graphic photos and descriptions may be difficult for you to watch and hear.
March 14th, 2023. Janet Crouch reported to the Mount Pleasant Police Department saying she had just escaped a dangerous case of domestic violence with her boyfriend, John Lesperance. During an argument, Crouch said Lesperance grabbed her by the hair and began beating her in the face and head until he put her in the shower, leaving her with severe bruising and blood pooling in Crouch's eyes. Reports state that he put a pistol to Crouch's head and forced her to ingest cocaine. Crouch was held captive for 3 days in their apartment, being physically beaten throughout until she was able to escape using their vehicle while he was at a doctor's appointment. Lesperance was arrested on charges of kidnapping and domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature. But 3 months later, he was released from jail on a $25,000 bond by Judge Bentley Price.
In your eyes, and speaking with the family, do you think the case was handled properly from the initial kidnapping charge?
I don't. I don't think that the initial charges were heavy enough. I think if this had been handled differently, it would have been a lot harder for him to come back and do what he did 3 years later.
And what happened next? The worst thing imaginable to Crouch and her loved ones, including close family friend Jessica Berry.
It's just, it's gut-wrenching to see that she finally had seemed to put a lot of it behind her, and then this is what happened.
May 11th, 2025. Janet Crouch and her son had just finished up dinner when there was a knock at the door. The scene unfolded quickly. From a woman and her son celebrating Mother's Day to a young boy's life changed forever.
That woman loved her son so much. She was the best mother.
Charleston police officers arrived at Crouch's West Ashley home after receiving multiple 911 calls reporting shots fired and a juvenile hiding in a closet. Officers quickly found Crouch shot to death inside the home. Her middle school-aged son told officers again and again, "My mother is dead. I watched my mother get shot."
Not only for she would be horrified to not be here to watch him grow up, but the fact that he has to carry around seeing it happen to her, to me, that is the most sickening, disgusting thing.
And once officers began investigating the death, they soon realized this was not a random act of violence, but a targeted attack. But by who? The two people charged, her ex-boyfriend and his new love interest. Just days after the murder, Lesperance and Jacinda Trader were arrested together in Florence, driving the same car that was seen leaving the crime scene. All while Lesperance was out on bond, and the 2023 kidnapping case still marked as pending.
I don't think any victims of this sort of situation think that they're going to be the one that eventually gets murdered. You hear about these things and you never think it's going to be you.
Ninth Circuit solicitor Scarlett Wilson told the Post and Courier in May that Crouch later refused to cooperate with prosecutors and that her office was exploring ways to continue the case without her cooperation. But those close to Crouch say differently. Her close friend Lauren was interviewed by CPD after the murder, telling officers that the solicitor appeared reluctant to proceed with the kidnapping case despite the evidence against Lesperance. Police reports go on to detail that in later conversations with the solicitor, Crouch became increasingly distressed and felt that no one in that office believed her or was fighting for her.
She didn't feel supported by the system in many different ways. You know, it almost feels like an undercurrent of blame to her for her role in this, when that really shouldn't be a part of the issue.
Based on these conflicting statements, we can't know for sure if Crouch was participating in the case or if the solicitor's office was continuing prosecution. But Janet Crouch's unfortunate death prompted me to ask questions about victim participation in domestic violence cases. Under South Carolina law, can domestic violence and kidnapping cases continue to be prosecuted even if a victim is no longer participating in the case?
Yes, a domestic violence case in South Carolina can be prosecuted if the victim no longer wants to participate in the case. The reality of it is that it is extremely hard, if not impossible, to get a conviction in many of those cases if the victim is unwilling to cooperate.
Looking at the numbers in Charleston County, an average of 22% of second-degree domestic violence cases have been dismissed over the last 3 years. Kidnapping cases have seen an average of 27% dismissal. And the majority of these cases are dismissed due to victims either recanting, being uncooperative, unable to be contacted, or requesting to drop their cases, according to court documents. Attorney Brady Vinoy says domestic violence cases without a victim are especially hard to prosecute because the assault needs to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
It's a case-by-case basis analysis. It has to be, especially in a case without a victim. You don't have the voice. You don't have the one witness who is there to say, this is what happened to me and why.
But why do victims decide to no longer participate in criminal charges against their abuser? The answer is convoluted, according to the Lowcountry domestic abuse shelter, My Sister's House.
They don't always know how to navigate the system on their own. That can be very intimidating. It's a lot for someone who's already going through a trauma to navigate themselves.
This is not a women's issue, it is a person issue, and we are all being impacted. It makes people very uncomfortable because it makes them look not only inward, but next door.
Those close to Crouch say they hope her death will serve as a wake-up call for how domestic violence cases are handled in the Lowcountry.
I think at a basic level, the attitude toward victims of this needs to be changed so that they do feel protected, but I also feel like there's got to be ways around their participating or not in order to move these cases forward.
Anyone in need of resources because of domestic violence can reach My Sister's House's 24-hour domestic violence hotline at 800-273-4673. Solicitor Scarlett Wilson denied my request for an interview on Janet Crouch's case and the larger conversation on domestic violence prosecution. In a written response, she said, quote, "We did not dismiss the case involving Ms. Crouch and likely would have continued the DV prosecution." As for the dismissed domestic violence cases, she said, quote, "They are not dismissed if we have other evidence that can be presented and amount for proof beyond a reasonable doubt." For Live 5 Investigates, I'm Emily Johnson.